Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Find Out Fridays. My name is John Gholson and I'm Senior UX and Ideation at Rocksauce Studios. Today, I'm going to be covering 5 quick tips to presenting your prototype. Often as UX designers, we're called upon to present our prototype, whether that's to clients, whether that's to coworkers, basically taking the software that we've been working on in the UX process and showing how the screens flow together into one story. There are some things that we've learned along the way that can really refine your presentation process, and I'm going to get into those today. Number 1, write a script. You don't need Final Draft. You don't need any kind of fancy screenwriting software. You can basically open a doc and just start typing. And when you write a script, you want to take your prototype and go screen to screen to screen and write to each screen. Write about the interactions that you're wanting the user to have. Write about what you're wanting the user to feel, what you're wanting them to click on, what you're hoping that they see or notice, and what you're trying to accomplish with the screen. Planning this out and writing a script to every stage of your prototype will allow you to hit the talking points you want to hit, maybe ignore some of the soft spots that you maybe have half-baked or haven't quite finished yet, but it'll provide you a framework that you can actually rely on then to go screen to screen to screen to tell the story that you're trying to tell. Number 2, do a dry run from your script. Take a coworker aside and literally read your script as you go through the prototype. What you'll find is that there's always some interaction that doesn't quite work the way that you wanted it to, whether or not it's a button that doesn't work, an animation that's a little wonky or too fast or too slow, or maybe even typos in your script itself. You want to do that dry run so that you can provide that extra last little level of polish that you need when you're actually presenting for real in front of someone. Number 3, preface your presentation with what the prototype solves, not what it does. A piece of software, let's say a piece of software helps you find local bakeries in your area, and that's what it does. But what is it solving? It's solving maybe the need for a community to find fresh baked goods from local businesses instead of chain businesses. Maybe it's for users to share their baked goods with each other. You want to get into what it's solving before you even hit your script, before you even start going screen to screen. You want to talk about this prototype does this for the user, it solves this problem for the user, it solves this problem in this way for the user. These are our concerns and the things that we have noted that have led to this design in the prototype. This has an interesting side effect to preface your presentation with what the prototype solves. The side effect is that more of your conversation and more of your criticism that you'll get from whoever you're presenting to is going to be centered around the problem solving and not necessarily the ins and outs of your design. People will, things about button sizes and font weights and things like that, those are all important. But really, when you're showing the prototype, the most important thing is, does it solve the problem? You're going to continue to refine. You're going to continue to solve some things like button sizes in the UI process. So really what you're asking is, does this get done what needs to get done? Does it solve the problem for the user? And how does it solve the problem for the user? And what thinking led you to problem solving in this way? It's great for making sure that your conversation is guided and that you're getting feedback you can turn into actual results in your UX process on your next iteration. Number 4, give yourself quick exits, escapes, and loops to get back to key pages easily. If you've done any prototyping, then you know that you kind of go like screen to screen to screen to screen to screen. And it's a very linear process, and maybe there are branches and pathways that lead you certain directions, but it is a very linear process. And oftentimes we discovered that we would go through something and someone would say, hey, can you show that screen again where I went to my profile? And we'll go, okay, and we'll have to go back to the beginning of the prototype and click, 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 click to get to where that particular screen was. So what I advise in regards to presenting your prototype is making sure that you have some spots that allow you to return to key screens. So for instance, profile is a great example of something that has an empty state and a full state. And you'll see the empty state and your process may go all the way through a bunch of screens before you get to a full state. But instead of having to reset to empty to go back to full, make sure that your full has a back door to the empty state, and make sure your empty state has a back door to the full state. A lot of times I'll just drop in a hotspot that will allow me to link the two back and forth, or I'll even put a very obvious, conspicuous button that says links to full profile or links to empty profile, so that I know, like, someone knows, first of all, that it's not part of the regular UX, it's not part of the product, but it does allow you to jump back and forth quickly, so you don't have to reset and go through a linear path all over again. It's great for variant states. If you have an app with a lot of variant states, you definitely want to create some kind of a legend of hotspots that will allow you to show those variant states without necessarily having to go through the whole process or hunt for screens while you're in the middle of a presentation. Number 5, when you conclude, ask questions that relate to the problem solving. If you're presenting a prototype, one would assume you're still in an iteration phase. You're in UX, you're still thinking about how this stuff works. And the reason you're presenting it is to get feedback. So make sure that the feedback that you receive is related to the problems that you're trying to solve. Never get to the end of the thing and go, what do you think? Or give me your first impressions. Make sure you have very pointed questions designed towards the things that you want to achieve. It's the only way you can go back and iterate, is knowing, were people in my community able to find bakeries? Were they confused in the process? Were they able to save those bakeries easily? Were they able to change settings to say gluten-free or only show me French breads, whatever it is. I'm using the bakery thing as an example, but you get my point. And make sure that the questions that you tailor are going to be things that help you. It sounds so simple, right? It sounds like it's a gimme, like, oh, anybody would do that. But I've seen people present before, and they often present with sort of just a hands-off, what do you think? That's one approach, but you won't get the answers that you might not get the answers that you're hoping for. And the only way to ensure that you'll get the answers that you're hoping for is to ask the questions that you were asking yourself along the way. Make sure that you put those into the script at the very end, and be ready to ask the questions that maybe you hit a spot in the prototyping that you didn't have a lot of confidence in. Go back and hit that point. You don't want a meeting to derail on finer points of design that have nothing to do with the problems that you're trying to solve. I think we've all been there, and it's just not fruitful. So thank you so much for joining us for another Find Out Friday. Those are just some quick tips to help you present your prototype. You probably have your own that you've learned along the way, so feel free to pick and borrow whatever you feel works for you. We've discovered these over the course of presenting prototypes now for years, and it really helps control the conversation to get very, very effective feedback. And that's really what we're looking for when we're presenting, is to make sure that when we iterate again, that we're iterating with some really great, fresh ideas that answer questions related to problem solving. So like, subscribe, and share if you can. Until next time, this has been John Gholson with Rocksauce Studios on Find Out Friday. Thank you so much.